One of the main reasons that you get patellofemoral pain is if you have weak quadriceps. So in today's video, I'm going to take you through a few options that you can try to get your quads a bit stronger. And do make sure you stay tuned until the very end of the video, as I'll also be discussing how much pain is the right amount of pain to work into if you have an injury, because it can be quite a difficult thing to manage when you're doing things by yourself. Starting right now. Just before we dive into the video, if this is the first time we've met, then welcome to Genuine Physio. My name's Luke and I'm a senior musculoskeletal physiotherapist from the UK. If you would like to know more about patellofemoral pain and all other things pain and rehabilitation, then consider hitting that subscribe button and tapping the notification bell so you get notified every time I release a new video, which I do every single week. Now I am going to try and include something for everybody. So we'll start off with the easiest, least irritable exercises first, and then we'll move on to some of the more difficult ones. Now, try these if you do have quite irritable symptoms. You'll start off on the bed. This one is called a static quad. You're going to tense your thigh muscle as hard as you can, and as you do that, you should see your heel raise off the bed slightly. And you can hold this for 5 to 10 seconds. And then you can ease off, and then you'll squeeze that thigh muscle again, hold for 5 to 10 seconds, and you should feel some tension or strain in your quadricep. If that was okay, you could move on to a straight leg raise, and that is what it says on the tin. So you're starting off in a very similar fashion, squeeze the thigh muscle, heel off the bed, and then you're going to raise the leg and hold for 5 to 10 seconds. And then you'll slowly lower down. You can do this in the position I'm in. You can also do it completely flat. Now moving on to some quadricep strengthening through range, we're going to start off with some seated knee extension. We're going to do the left one first, so the easiest version will be without any resistance. Bring the toes towards you, tense that thigh muscle nice and firmly, and you're aiming for a good 5 to 10 second hold. If that was too easy, you can add some resistance. I have a band. If you have ankle weights at home, that would be appropriate. Or if you are lucky enough to go to a gym, they do have leg extension machines that have quite a lot of weight that would be perfect for load progression. If you did want a resistance band, then I have popped a few links in the description below to ones that I would recommend, so feel free to take a look at that. But the movement is exactly the same. Toes towards you, squeeze the thigh muscle, but this time you've got more load going through the knee because of that extra resistance. So now we're going to go through a few different squat variations. Now, if you are somebody who's not that familiar with doing squats, or it's not something that you practice with, I would advise trying it on a chair first. So a sit to stand type movement, just because it is a really nice cue to have behind you for where your bum needs to go, basically. So you want to start off with your feet around hip width apart, and then you can have your hands out in front to counterbalance you, and then you're just going to stand up and sit down. Now one of the trickiest things that people find with squats is that driving back motion of the hips, which is why having that chair behind you is really nice, because you know that that's where your bottom needs to go. A lot of people find that they're coming forwards or they're leaning forwards, and that's not really where you want to be. So stick your bottom out, drive it back to that chair, and then when you feel like you're comfortable not sitting and having a rest, you can just tap and back up so your legs aren't getting that rest in between. When it comes to adding load, there's lots of different variations, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. You just need some external load going through those quadriceps. If you do have access to a barbell, you could have a barbell behind you, you could have 2 smaller dumbbells, or a dumbbell close to your body, a heavier one, or you could even use a kettlebell. If you don't have access to those things and you're trying to do things at home by yourself, a rucksack with some heavy things in, or some hand luggage with some heavy bottles of water, cans of food, or anything else that you can find lying around the house will do the job just fine. We're going to use 2 dumbbells for the purpose of today. So similar principle, get yourself set nice. You want to have a nice straight back and chest facing forward. Lower your bottom down, sink your bottom down into your heels, push those heels down into the floor, and then drive up through those knees. A further way that you could add load to your leg without any weight would be to do it on one leg. So you could do a single leg squat. So if you need to balance on something, that's fine. this is the leg that's going to be doing the work, and you would just lower yourself down and then come back up. Lower yourself down and come back up. So you could do it on a flat surface. If you wanted to make it slightly more challenging, you could get your bottom step at home, hold on to the banister, and then do a single leg dip down. So you'd be working through more range. So dip down through that step, try and push that unaffected leg out in front of you and get those quads working nice and hard. You could try some wall squat. So even if your symptoms are quite irritable, you could just get in this position and hold it so you haven't got lots of movement going through the knees. However, if you were able to tolerate it, you could do a squat on the wall, aiming for around 90 degrees at the knee and 90 degrees at the hip. And if you did find that quite easy, you could always do it on the affected leg only. So shift your weight onto the affected side, let's say it's the left, and then you would do the same thing. So squat yourself down, back up, squat yourself down, and back up. So there were a few squat variations for you. Another quadricep dominant exercise is a lunge or split squat. It's also a very functional movement that's important as well. So if we go through a few variations varying in difficulty, starting with a split squat. Now, the easiest way to do it, if your symptoms again are very irritable, would just be to do it on a step. So having that leg raised slightly does decrease the pressure going through the front of the knee, and you can also hold on if you need to. So you would just lunge down, come back up, lunge down and come back up. Obviously you would do that on both sides. If that felt okay, you can get rid of the step and you can do it on a flat surface. So again, holding on if you need to, going down, back up, down and back up. And again, if your symptoms are quite irritable and you don't feel like you can work through the full range, then even doing 50% of the movement is going to be better than doing nothing at all. When you're comfortable doing your split squats on a flat surface, unsupported, then you can grab some additional load. And the options are the same. Rucksack on your back, hand luggage in front of you, or the options with the weights that we spoke about before. I'm going to use the kettlebell this time. Across my chest, I'm going to get into that split squat position and then exactly the same movement. Loading up that quadricep and make sure that rear knee is going as close to the floor as you can, and it needs to bend. You can't, it's not a stretch, this exercise. Don't keep the leg straight. It needs to bend. That rear heel will come off the floor and your toes will be curled over as you go down. A further split squat variation, which is slightly more difficult, is a Bulgarian split squat. You will need a chair behind you. You could do it on a bench in the gym, or a jump box in the gym is fine as well, or sofa at home actually would do the job just fine. Now, if you did feel like you needed some support, you could have a chair behind you. You could do it nice and close to a wall, or you could even have another chair to the side of you just so that you can place your hand there. Your rear foot will be elevated on the step, and you'll need to have a play around with your foot position to get comfortable. When you do feel stable, then you would lower yourself down. You can have your hands out in front, you can have them here, it doesn't matter, whatever feels comfortable. So you go down onto that affected knee, loading up your quadriceps, and then really push and drive up through that foot on the way up. Now, split squats do tend to be a bit kinder on the knees than lunges, just because your feet are in contact with the ground the whole time. But if your symptoms are allowing you to, then you could start progressing onto some lunges. So starting with feet around hip width apart, lunging forwards, coming back. Now your options would be, you could just aim for fatigue in that one side and doing your 8 to 12 on one side and then swapping over, or you could alternate between left and right. Now, progressing load with the lunges is pretty much exactly the same as how you would progress load with the split squats, so I won't show you how to do that. If you were trying to get back to some higher level activity, so we're thinking probably jumping, hopping, landing type movements, then you may want to consider some higher level, more dynamic, plyometric, explosive type movements. And you can do this variation with a lunge. So you can do some jump lunges. So you can, if this is the leg at the front, you could just jump up and down on that one. But similarly, with the lunges, you could also alternate between left and right. And this is going to hopefully be more functional to those more explosive type activities. Now, I did say if you stay tuned until the end of the video, I would discuss how much pain is appropriate to work into if you have an injury. Obviously, in this case, patellofemoral pain. Now, the rule of thumb is things don't have to be completely pain-free. The reason for this is we know that pain doesn't equal damage. Generally, pain does correlate quite poorly with tissue damage. So the rule of thumb would be it's okay to work into tolerable levels of discomfort. It's subjective, but we're thinking around 2 to 4 out of 10 on the pain scale, 10 being the worst pain. What should happen is it should be a little bit uncomfortable when you do the activity or exercise, and then you need to monitor what happens for the following 24 and 48 hours. If the next day things are a little bit worse than your baseline, but they're manageable, and then it settles down after a 2-day period, that would be appropriate to work into. If, however, you felt that the following few days your pain was significantly worse, that's not a sign that you've done any damage. It's probably just a sign that you've overloaded that area of tissue a bit too quickly, a bit too soon. So have a few days off, and then when you go back to that activity at a later date, you just need to complete it at a lower intensity. Try not to get into a cycle of avoiding things completely because they bring on some symptoms. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you found today's video useful. I would love to hear from you, so please do drop me a comment below the video and let me know which exercise from today's video you found most helpful for your patellofemoral pain. If you are new to the channel, then do consider hitting that subscribe button and tapping the notification bell. It means you'll get notified every time I release a new video, which I do every single week. It also means that more people are likely to see the video that hopefully you found helpful. If you did like this video, there's every chance you'll like the video that I have put together on glute strengthening exercises for patellofemoral pain, and there is a whole playlist on the channel to help you manage your patellofemoral pain better at home. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I will see you again very soon.